The war room deep beneath Earth's central command was silent except for the soft hum of holographic displays. Red markers blinked across the star map, showing one human colony after another falling to the Dominion forces. General James Walker stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of another defeat. "Sir, we've lost contact with New Madrid," reported Colonel Lisa Hayes, her voice steady despite the gravity of the news. "That makes it the third colony this month." Walker nodded slowly. Everyone in the room knew what this meant. The Dominion's superior ships and weapons were pushing humanity back on all fronts. Their energy shields made traditional weapons useless, and their eye-guided targeting systems could shoot down missiles from impossible distances. "Show me their attack pattern again," Walker ordered, his eyes narrowing as he studied the holographic display. Something had been bothering him about the Dominion strategies, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. The map shifted, displaying the last 6 months of battles. Colonel Hayes manipulated the controls, and bright lines traced the movement of Dominion fleets across human space. As Walker watched, he noticed something odd about their fleet movements. "Stop," he commanded. "Go back to the Battle of New Sydney." The display rewound. Walker stepped closer, his face intense with concentration. There, he pointed to a particular formation. And there again at Henderson's World. And again at New Madrid. Colonel Hayes looked confused. "Sir." "They're command ships," Walker said, a hint of excitement creeping into his voice. "They're always present at major engagements, not coordinating from a distance, physically present." The room stirred with interest. Intelligence Officer Mark Peters stepped forward, consulting his datapad. "Sir, our captured documents suggest this might be related to their belief system. The Dominion's leadership caste considers it dishonorable to order troops into battle without being present." Walker's eyes lit up. For the first time in months, a smile crossed his face. "Get me everything we have on their command structure. And I mean everything." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Intelligence reports flooded in from across human space. Analysts worked around the clock, piecing together fragments of information about Dominion leadership patterns. What they found changed everything. In a secure briefing room, Walker presented his findings to Earth's Defense Council. "The Dominion's entire military operates on a strict hierarchy," he explained, showing detailed diagrams. "Their troops won't fight without direct oversight from their commanders, and their commanders won't give orders unless they're physically present in the battle zone." "That's their weakness?" asked one of the council members, skeptical. "That their leaders show up to fights?" "No," Walker replied, his voice firm. "Their weakness is that they must show up to fights. Must. Their entire society is built on personal presence and direct command. They consider remote leadership cowardly and dishonorable." He paused, letting that sink in. "And here's the key. They believe their technology makes them invulnerable. Their personal shields, their detection systems, their AI defenses, they trust these completely. They've never faced an enemy that could threaten their command staff directly." The room was silent as the implications became clear. Another council member spoke up. "What are you suggesting, General?" Walker's expression was grim but determined. "I'm suggesting we show them how dangerous it is to underestimate human ingenuity. Their shields can stop energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles. Their sensors can detect any powered device. Their eye can track any fast-moving threat." He smiled. "But they've never faced Earth's best snipers." "Snipers?" The word echoed around the room. "Against their technology." "Yes," Walker said firmly. "The oldest human military skill. Patience, observation, and one perfect shot. They dismiss these skills as primitive. They won't be looking for them." He activated a display showing 5 files. "And I know exactly who we need for this mission." The council chamber erupted in discussion, but Walker knew he had them. For the first time since the war began, humanity had found a crack in the Dominion's armor. Now they just had to exploit it. Master Sergeant Tom Reed stood at the edge of the training ground, watching the morning mist roll across the grass. The facility in northern Montana was one of the few places left on Earth where the military still trained traditional snipers. Most modern warfare had moved to eye-guided systems, but Reed had always believed in the human touch. The sound of approaching vehicles broke the silence. 5 transport trucks appeared through the mist, carrying his new team. General Walker had given him just 3 days to evaluate and select Earth's best snipers for the mission. The trucks stopped, and 20 candidates stepped out. Reed studied them carefully. These weren't regular soldiers. Each one had been handpicked from special forces units across Earth's remaining territories. But Reed wasn't looking for just skill. He needed something more. "Welcome to selection," Reed's voice carried across the field. "You're here because someone thinks you're the best. I'm here to prove most of them wrong." The candidates stood at attention. Reed walked slowly along their line, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. "The Dominion thinks humans are primitive," he continued. "They think we're weak because we still rely on human skills instead of pure technology. Today, you're going to prove them right, or prove them very, very wrong." The first test was simple: lie still. For 12 hours, the candidates had to remain motionless in their chosen positions while drones with thermal sensors swept the area. Any movement meant elimination. By hour 6, 5 candidates had failed. "The Dominion sensors are 100 times better than these," Reed told the remaining 15 during their brief break. "And you'll need to stay still for days, not hours." The next test pushed their shooting skills to the limit. But Reed wasn't interested in who could hit the most targets. He watched how they handled wind changes, how they adapted to equipment problems, how they thought through each shot. Jack Wilson caught his attention first. The man wasn't the most accurate shooter, but he showed excellent judgment, never taking shots he wasn't certain about. "Smart," Reed noted. "No point giving away your position if you're not sure." Anna Miller stood out next. Her patience was exceptional. She waited nearly 40 minutes for the perfect wind conditions before taking her first shot. When she did fire, her shot was perfect. Robert Torres had an almost supernatural ability to read terrain. He found positions others missed, angles that shouldn't have worked but did. And Mike Brown showed an incredible talent for remaining invisible. Twice Reed walked right past him without spotting his position. By the end of the 3rd day, Reed had made his decision. He gathered the remaining candidates. "This isn't about being the best shot," he explained. "The Dominion has computers that can calculate trajectories better than any human. This isn't about having the best gear. They've got technology we can't match. This is about being human." He paused, making eye contact with each candidate. "We're going to win this war not because we're stronger or more advanced, but because we can do what their machines and algorithms can't. We can think creatively. We can adapt. We can outthink them." Reed pulled out 4 files. "Wilson, Miller, Torres, Brown. Step forward." The 4 moved ahead of the group. Reed handed each of them a folder. "Congratulations. You're now part of Operation Ghost Shot. The rest of you, thank you for your service. Dismissed." As the others left, Reed turned to his new team. "Inside those folders is information about our mission. Memorize it, then burn it. What we're about to attempt has never been done before." He looked at each of them in turn. "The Dominion thinks human snipers are obsolete. They think we're relics of a primitive past. In 2 weeks, we're going to change their minds. We're going to show them why humans have been feared on the battlefield for thousands of years." The team stood straighter, understanding the weight of the moment. Reed nodded in approval. "Training starts at dawn. Get some rest. You're going to need it." As his new team headed toward their quarters, Reed allowed himself a small smile. The Dominion was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating primitive human skills. The underground testing facility hummed with activity as Reed's team gathered around a captured Dominion sensor array. For 2 weeks, they had been studying how the alien technology detected human presence. Now they were about to test their first breakthrough. The aliens rely too much on their tech, Torres said, adjusting his modified ghillie suit. The traditional camouflage garment had been rewoven with threads of copper and zinc, creating a unique electromagnetic pattern. Miller held up a scanner, checking the readings. Their sensors are programmed to ignore natural electromagnetic fields. They're looking for power signatures, heat patterns, and movement. She smiled. They never thought someone would try to look like a rock. The team had discovered that certain combinations of earth metals, when woven together, created a signature nearly identical to common minerals. To the Dominion's advanced sensors, a properly equipped sniper would appear as nothing more than part of the landscape. Time to test it, Reed announced. He pointed to the obstacle course they had built. Brown, you're up first. Let's see if you can fool their best detection systems. Brown moved to the starting position, his modified suit making him look like a walking pile of leaves and dirt. The Dominion sensor array powered up, its purple scanning beams sweeping across the course. Everyone held their breath as Brown began to move. On the sensor display, his signature blended perfectly with the background. Where human eyes could barely spot him, the alien technology didn't register him at all. It's working, Wilson whispered, watching the readouts. The sensor thinks he's just another rock formation. But avoiding detection was only part of their challenge. The team also had to master new shooting techniques. Traditional sniper rifles wouldn't work against the Dominion's personal shields. The aliens could stop any high-velocity projectile. Reed unveiled their solution: 5 specially modified rifles. These beauties fire at exactly 1/3 the normal velocity, he explained. The Dominion's shields are calibrated to stop fast projectiles. Anything moving too slowly registers as harmless debris. The team spent days practicing with the new weapons. They had to completely relearn their shooting skills. The slower bullets meant more drop, more wind effect, and longer flight times. Every shot required perfect calculation and timing. Remember, Reed instructed during one session, we'll only get one chance. The moment the first shot is fired, their shields will adapt. All 5 shots need to hit simultaneously. They practiced synchronizing their shots for hours each day. Wilson developed a system of subtle hand signals they could use to coordinate without any electronic communications that might be detected. But the hardest part of their training was learning to survive with minimal equipment. The Dominion could detect any powered devices. No heat sources, no electronic scopes, no powered rations heaters. We'll have to do everything the old way, Reed explained. Body heat conservation, manual distance calculation, cold rations, like snipers did hundreds of years ago. The team learned to stay warm using special breathing techniques. They practiced calculating distances using nothing but their fingers and natural landmarks. They memorized star patterns for navigation without computers. By the 3rd week, they could operate completely dark, using no technology that the Dominion could detect. They became ghosts, able to move through sensor fields that would have spotted normal soldiers instantly. During their final test, all 5 team members had to infiltrate a heavily guarded perimeter equipped with actual Dominion sensors. They not only had to get in undetected, but also set up firing positions and coordinate a synchronized shot on 5 targets. The test took 18 hours. When it was over, Reed gathered his team. Perfect, he said, showing them the sensor logs. Not a single alarm had been triggered, and all 5 simulated targets had been hit within 1/10 of a second of each other. The Dominion thinks their technology makes them invincible. They'd forgotten that humans hunted and fought before we had any technology at all. He looked at each member of his team with pride. In 3 days, we deploy to New Colorado. The real mission begins. The Dominion is about to learn that sometimes the old ways are the deadliest. The dropship descended through New Colorado's turbulent atmosphere, its stealth systems running at maximum power. Inside, Reed's team checked their gear one final time. Their modified ghillie suits were coated with local dirt and plant matter collected from the landing zone. Latest intel, Wilson reported, studying a hand-drawn map. 3 Dominion command ships will arrive in 7 days. Their leaders will conduct the ceremonial review from the high plain. He pointed to a marked location. Right here. The team had memorized every detail of the terrain from satellite photos. New Colorado was a harsh world, with violent storms and dangerous wildlife. But its challenging environment gave them the cover they needed. "Remember," Reed said quietly, "we're invisible as long as we stay still. The moment anyone moves at the wrong time, their sensors will light up like a Christmas tree." The dropship touched down in a narrow canyon, 50 miles from the target zone. As soon as the rear door opened, the bitter cold hit them. New Colorado's twin suns were setting, painting the sky in strange purple and orange patterns. "Move out," Reed ordered. "We've got 2 days to reach our positions before their advance teams arrive." They moved only at night, using the darkness and their modified suits to avoid the Dominion's orbital scans. During the day, they lay motionless, letting their suits' mineral signatures blend with the rocky terrain. The local wildlife posed an unexpected challenge. Giant six-legged creatures that the colonists called rock runners roamed the plains, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground. The team had to time their movements between the creatures' hunting patterns. On the second night, they reached the edge of their target zone. Torres spotted the first signs of Dominion activity. Automated sensor beacons being dropped from high altitude. "They're setting up the security perimeter," Miller whispered, watching through her scope. "Just like Intel said they would." Reed signaled for the team to split up. Each member had a pre-selected position, carefully chosen to provide the perfect firing angle while maintaining cover. They would have to reach these positions before the Dominion's full security grid activated. Brown went first, moving like a shadow across the open ground. His suit's mineral signature perfectly matched the surrounding rocks. The Dominion beacons pulsed as he passed between them, but their sensors registered nothing unusual. One by one, the others moved to their positions. Miller found a natural depression that gave her a clear line of sight to the ceremonial grounds. Wilson tucked himself into a crack in a cliff face, nearly invisible even to human eyes. Torres chose a position behind a cluster of local vegetation, its metallic leaves helping to mask his signature. Reed set up in a shallow cave, its mouth barely wide enough for his rifle barrel. They finished just in time. As the last light faded, the first Dominion security ships appeared in the sky. Troops in powered armor began patrolling the area, their sensors sweeping for any signs of threat. "Hold position." Reed's hand signal passed down the line. Absolute stillness for the next 5 days. The team watched as the Dominion transformed the plain below. Landing pads were constructed for the command ships. Review stands appeared, built by automated construction units. Security checkpoints materialized at every approach. Through it all, the 5 snipers remained frozen in their positions. They took turns sleeping in 2-hour shifts, always maintaining their cover. They ate cold rations in tiny bites, careful not to make any sudden movements that might trigger the sensors. A massive storm rolled through on the 3rd day. Lightning struck the plains around them. But they couldn't move. Rock runners passed within feet of their positions, but they remained still. By the 5th day, the Dominion's security was at its peak. Patrol ships crisscrossed the sky. Security troops walked paths that sometimes passed right by the hidden snipers. But the alien sensors saw only rocks and dirt, their advanced technology blind the simple ancient threat hiding in plain sight. 2 days until the ceremony. Reed signaled as another patrol passed. "Stay ghosted. Our window is coming." Hour by hour, the 5 snipers endured their 6th day in position. The twin suns of New Colorado beat down on them mercilessly, but none dared move to adjust their cover. Their survival depended on absolute stillness. Miller felt a bead of sweat roll down her forehead and into her eye. She couldn't blink it away. Even that small movement might trigger the Dominion's motion sensors. The burning sensation became another test of willpower. Joining the cramping muscles and grinding thirst, they all battled. Through his scope, Brown watched a Dominion patrol march past his position for the 12th time that day. Their powered armor hummed softly, sensors sweeping the area. One soldier stopped barely 3 meters from where Brown lay hidden, adjusting something on his suit. Brown didn't even breathe until the patrol moved on. These primitives couldn't possibly threaten this position. The patrol leader's translated voice crackled through their helmet speakers. Their weapons are too crude to penetrate our shields. Torres allowed himself the smallest smile. The Dominion's arrogance was their greatest weakness. They trusted their technology so completely that they couldn't imagine being defeated by simple physics and human patience. A dust storm rolled across the plain in the late afternoon, coating everything in reddish powder. The team had learned about these storms during their briefing, but experiencing one was different. The stinging particles found every gap in their ghillie suits, adding new layers of discomfort to their ordeal. Wilson struggled to keep his scope clear without making any sudden movements. The dust was actually helpful. It masked their heat signatures even better than their suits, but it also made their job harder. They would need perfect visibility for the shots to come. Reed maintained his focus by running through the mission parameters again and again in his mind. The Dominion commanders would arrive tomorrow. Their shields would be calibrated to stop any high-speed projectile or energy weapon, but they wouldn't be looking for shots fired at precisely 1/3 the normal velocity, too slow to trigger their defensive systems. A massive rock runner thundered past Miller's position, its 6 legs shaking the ground. The creature stopped to sniff the air, its armored head turning toward her hiding spot. For a terrifying moment, she thought it might investigate further. The Dominion guards would certainly notice if a local predator started digging at the ground where she lay. But after what seemed like hours, the beast moved on. Night brought new challenges. The temperature dropped sharply, and frozen sweat became a serious concern. They had to maintain their body temperature without shivering, another movement that could give them away. The breathing techniques they had practiced became essential for survival. Torres watched the Dominion security lights sweep the area, creating strange shadows on the rocky ground. He had counted 47 distinct patrol patterns over the past 6 days. Tomorrow, those patterns would change when the commanders arrived, but by then it wouldn't matter. Brown's position gave him a clear view of the ceremonial grounds being prepared below. Workers were making final adjustments to the review stands where the Dominion commanders would stand. The aliens had a strict hierarchy, and their leaders always stood in specific positions during ceremonies. It made them predictable. It made them vulnerable. As the second sun finally set, Reed checked his team using the special mirror system they had developed. 5 tiny flashes confirmed everyone was still in position, still undetected, still ready. They had survived 6 days of dust storms, dangerous wildlife, freezing nights, and constant patrols. One more night, Reed thought to himself as darkness fell. One more night, and we show the Dominion why humans have been the apex predators of Earth for thousands of years. The night hours crept by. Each sniper fought their own private battle against fatigue, discomfort, and the maddening need to move. They had trained for this, prepared for this, but the reality tested them in ways no training could simulate. Dawn would bring their moment. All they had to do was remain ghosts for a few more hours. The first sun of New Colorado rose over the horizon, casting long shadows across the ceremonial grounds. Reed watched through his scope as Dominion security forces made their final sweeps of the area. Today was the day. Everything they had endured led to this moment. 3 massive ships appeared in the morning sky, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. The Dominion command vessels descended slowly, their anti-gravity systems creating ripples in the dust below. Each ship was a fortress, protected by the most advanced shields and detection systems in the known galaxy. Targets approaching. Wilson's hand signals flickered down the line. Each sniper acknowledged with the smallest finger movement, careful not to disturb their concealment. The Dominion commanders emerged from their ships surrounded by guards in powered armor. Their tall, imposing forms were wrapped in ceremonial robes that rippled in the wind. Their personal shields created slight distortions in the air around them. Miller adjusted her aim by fractions of a millimeter, compensating for the morning wind. The slower velocity of their modified rounds meant that even the slightest breeze could throw off their shots. They would only get one chance. Brown watched the commanders take their positions on the review stand through his scope. Just as intelligence had predicted, they stood in a specific formation, a display of their rigid hierarchy. Their arrogance made them predictable. Their predictability made them targets. Torres felt a bead of sweat roll down his face as he made his final calculations. Distance, 1,247 meters. Wind speed, 3.2 meters per second with gusts to 4.1. Temperature, 12 degrees Celsius. Air pressure, 92% Earth standard. Each factor had to be perfect. The ceremony began. Dominion troops marched in formation below the review stand, their powered armor moving in perfect synchronization. The commanders raised their arms in traditional salute, holding the pose as their soldiers passed. Reed's hands moved in the final series of signals. Wind speed confirmed. Range confirmed. Hold for synchronization mark. Each sniper gently squeezed their trigger to the first pressure point, taking up the slack. Their modified rounds were primed to launch at exactly 1/3 the speed of a normal sniper round, slow enough to slip through the gaps in Dominion shield frequencies. The second sun crested the horizon. The moment they had waited 7 days for had arrived. The commanders would remain stationary for exactly 30 seconds during the peak of the ceremony. Reed watched his target through the scope, waiting for perfect alignment. The wind died down. The dust settled. The universe seemed to hold its breath. His finger twitched in the signal. 4 other fingers moved in perfect unison. 5 shots rang out across the plain. So close together, they sounded like a single report. 5 specially modified rounds crawled through the air at their carefully calculated speed. The Dominion's automatic defense systems, calibrated for high-velocity threats, ignored them completely. Time seemed to slow. The team watched through their scopes as their rounds traveled the distance, fighting gravity and wind resistance. 1.5 seconds felt like an eternity. Then, as 5 rounds found their marks, the Dominion commanders fell. Their shields, designed to stop plasma bolts and hypersonic projectiles, had failed to stop simple bullets moving at subsonic speeds. Their supposedly impenetrable defense had been defeated by basic physics. Chaos erupted on the ceremonial grounds. Dominion troops spun in confusion, their sensors searching for threats at the wrong speeds, in the wrong places. The humans remained perfectly still, their mineral-coated suits blending with the terrain. The entire operation had taken less than 2 seconds. By the time the Dominion security forces understood what had happened, there was nothing to find. No energy signatures, no high-velocity projectiles, no technological traces. Just 5 perfect shots from 5 hidden positions, delivered with patience and precision that the Dominion's advanced civilization had forgotten was possible. Reed allowed himself a small smile. The mission was complete. Now they just had to remain ghosts for 1 more day, waiting for their extraction under the cover of the chaos they had created. 5 shots had just changed the course of the war. But more importantly, they had shattered the Dominion's belief in their technological invincibility. 1 month after the shots that changed everything, Reed stood in the same war room where the mission had begun. The holographic display showed a very different map now. The red markers of Dominion advances had stopped spreading. In some sectors, they were actually retreating. The effects were more dramatic than we anticipated, General Walker said, studying the latest intelligence reports. The loss of 3 high commanders didn't just disrupt their military structure, it shattered their entire worldview. The screen showed intercepted Dominion communications. Their rigid command hierarchy had fallen into chaos. No one wanted to take direct command of battle operations anymore. Their leaders, once proud to stand at the front of every engagement, now stayed hidden behind layers of security. "They're afraid," Colonel Hayes noted. "For the first time since the war began, they're actually afraid." Reed nodded. They never expected to be vulnerable. Their technology made them feel invincible. Now they know better. The impact spread beyond the military. Dominion society was built on the belief that their technological superiority made them untouchable. The fact that they had been defeated by what they considered primitive weapons had caused a cultural crisis. Their entire fleet has changed their shield configurations, Walker continued. They're trying to block slower velocity projectiles now. But that's weakened their defenses against other threats. Our conventional forces are starting to break through. News of the successful operation had spread through human space, reigniting hope on a dozen worlds. The story of 5 snipers defeating the Dominion's best defenses with simple physics and patience had become a symbol of human ingenuity. The psychological effect was even greater than the tactical victory. Hayes added, "Every Dominion commander now knows they can be reached. They're hesitating, second-guessing their strategies. Their advance has lost all momentum." Reed's team had returned as quietly as they had deployed. Wilson had gone back to training new snipers. Miller was developing more techniques to defeat alien detection systems. Torres and Brown were preparing other special operations teams in the new methods they had pioneered. "We've received an interesting transmission," Walker said, activating another display. "The Dominion is requesting diplomatic talks. Not surrender negotiations, but actual diplomatic engagement. For the first time, they're treating us as equals." Reed remembered the Dominion patrol leader's words on New Colorado. These primitives couldn't possibly threaten this position. That attitude had cost them dearly. They had learned that humans weren't primitive. They were adaptable, creative, and willing to use both old methods and new ideas to win. "What happens now?" Reed asked, looking at the changing map of human space. "Now we press our advantage," Walker replied. "Not just militarily, but psychologically. Every Dominion commander knows they're vulnerable. Every alien soldier has to wonder if there's a human sniper watching them through primitive optical sights, waiting with infinite patience." The war wasn't over, but its character had fundamentally changed. The Dominion had lost its aura of invincibility. Their technological superiority meant less when they knew it could be defeated by simple ancient skills. "Your team proved something we had forgotten ourselves," Hayes said to Reed. "Technology isn't everything. The human element, patience, skill, creativity, that's what truly wins wars." Reed thought about the long days of waiting on New Colorado, about the discipline and endurance his team had shown. They had demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology, but its ability to combine the old and the new, to find unexpected solutions to impossible problems. 5 shots changed the course of the war, Walker concluded. But more importantly, they changed how both sides think about warfare. The Dominion learned to fear human ingenuity, and we remembered why we should never underestimate it. As Reed left the war room, he smiled. Somewhere in human space, other teams were preparing for their own missions, learning to become ghosts, waiting for their moment to prove that humanity's ancient skills were still lethal in the age of interstellar war. The Dominion had learned a crucial lesson. Never dismiss an enemy as primitive just because they don't rely solely on advanced technology. Sometimes, the old ways are the deadliest.